Hey, this is Percival Constantine. I am one of the co-creators of the exciting new comic book called Paragons of Earth. In this comic book, what we have done is we've taken a bunch of forgotten Golden Age characters, plucked them out of the public domain, given them a new coat of paint, and reinvented them for a new generation of readers. And then we've put them all together and created this exciting new adventure that you get to experience very shortly. This book was co-written by myself with Thomas DJ, with designs and pencils by the wonderfully talented Eric Johns, and then everything else is my fault. I did the coloring, the inking, and the lettering on the rest of it. In past videos, I showed you a little bit of behind the scenes at how we designed some of our characters. So we started off with Adam Man, and then the second one we did was on Amazona, the Mighty Woman. And now to kind of round out that trinity, this video, I'm going to be talking about the owl. So when you think of the Justice League parallel, that was kind of our inception idea for this concept. You need to have a Batman character, and the owl is basically our Batman character, which is why it's fitting I'm wearing a Batman t-shirt today. But when it comes to the Golden Age characters, there is no shortage of Batman-esque analogs. Back in the Golden Age of comic books, they kind of grew out of the mystery men pulps. So you had a lot of characters who were these masked, sometimes just masked, sometimes also masked and costumed vigilantes, usually who did not have any superpowers or had very minor powers, and they were all kind of running around at that time. Lots of options to choose from for a Batman type character. For example, one of the ones I initially thought of was the Black Bat, but ultimately I decided that he was a little bit too grounded for what we were trying to go with. I didn't feel like he kind of fit the bill of being more of a superhero type. He seemed more of like a Daredevil or Punisher type of character. Not really quite a good fit for what we were trying to do with Paragons of Earth. And ultimately, what I decided to do was the owl. Now, when I say the owl, there are a few different versions of it. There was one that was published by Centaur. There was one that was published by Dell. And Prize Comics also had a character called the Black Owl. So there are a few different choices you had. But ultimately, the one that I think worked the best in my research was the Dell version of the owl. So let's start off by taking a look at that version of the character. Now here you see this is the Dell version of the owl. Not a whole lot that's impressive in terms of design. He's basically just wearing a bodysuit. Well, kind of sometimes it looks like a bodysuit. Other times it looks like it's just everything is the same color. Just this kind of purplish gray color with a cape that seems to be attached at the wrists. And you can see there's some color variations. Sometimes it's more of a magenta or purplish color. Sometimes it's red. In this one here, it looks to be blue with a yellow, and I'm not sure if that's the interior of the cape or if that's the moon, but it looks like to be like a blue cape here. And here his whole costume looks to be kind of more of a darker grayish, almost black color. And then the only real distinguishing features in this costume are these kind of pointed pixie-like boots, the kind of owl horn ears, and the goggle-shaped eyes with a little nose beak here too. This is what we had to work with. Now, Dynamite Comics did their own version of this character in their Project Superpowers comic book, and I'd like to take a look at that just because it's useful for comparison purposes. So this was done by the great Alex Ross, and you can see some of the cool things that they incorporated here. They took that owl symbol, the idea of the brow and the round eyes, and they made that kind of a chest symbol for him that's connected to the cape, which is a really cool design feature. And they kept the wings attached at the wrists, and so he's got this really cool wingspan going here. But otherwise, very much just kind of an update of the classic costume. Now, I wanted to avoid too many comparisons with this version. So I decided to deviate from this idea of a more cloth, spandexy type of costume to go with something a little bit more armored. And you can probably tell here that I did take inspiration from a Batman, but not the Bruce Wayne Batman. Instead, my inspiration was from the Terry McGinnis Batman Beyond version. All right, this idea that the owl suit is kind of a suit of armor, and instead of having cape or wings out all the time, I had the idea of them being collapsible and being able to emerge only when he needs them to glide or anything like that. And as you can see in these sketches and the turnaround here that I did, that I'd kind of incorporate this kind of idea into it. And I had tried to make it to look a little bit more armored. Now, when Eric joined the project, he went with something a little bit more similar to the Owl's original design at first. So you can see here, he did keep kind of like the big eyes thing. He has kind of this beak thing. And, but one of the things that I didn't really like about this is that it seemed a little bit too close to Batman, or even a little bit too close to Night Owl from Watchmen. And so, and Tom and I were both kind of in agreement that we didn't really quite think that this was fitting our vision of the character. So Eric went back to the drawing board, and then he came up with this second sketch here. This was a lot closer to what I was starting to picture in my head. And but one of the things I didn't like about this one was, if you look here, you can see that he did this kind of pupil design, which if you look back at this version too, he had kind of like these, you can see kind of like this eye detail here. I didn't really like that. I didn't think it really I think it looked a lot better if the character just had these kind of opaque eyes. And you can see here, and then that's when we came on to this one. And this was pretty much perfect. Almost exactly like pretty much exactly what we ended up with. You know, we've got the kind of an owl type design here over the chest, which is its own image, but it's got kind of an owl motif, but it's not too similar to the Dynamite version. We've got the big round eyes here with the owl brow, and we even incorporated the beak to a small extent. We've got the idea of him having talons on his claws, on his gauntlets. And the cape was, Eric came up with some interesting ideas about the cape. So you can see here, this is the final design we went with. And he had this idea of the glider almost being a little bit more, a little bit less sci-fi, a little bit more practical in design, which has created a pretty cool effect for the character overall. Now, and it shows that we've got this kind of Batman influence, but it's not overpowering. And the claws do kind of show that he means business. A little bit more of a harder edge than what you'd expect from Batman. Now, on the character front, one of the things that Tom and I kind of struggled with in this design was a backstory. What we ultimately decided to do was to make him a black man to add some more diversity. And in the original pulps, one of the cool things that one of the things about him is that he was a police investigator. And we had to try to figure out how are we going to work that in. And we kind of approached him almost very similar to a Captain Holt type of person from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Although instead of Captain Holt trying to reform the system from within, our version, you know, he puts on a costume and goes out and does it at night. But we do have a scene in the first issue where he confronts a corrupt police captain and with some intimidating information. And it's kind of hinted that if this captain doesn't do what Nick Terry, which is what his real name, wants, then the Owl's going to come in afterwards anyway. So that's kind of our look at the Owl. Not a very long one here, but it gives you a little bit taste about what we were thinking of with this character. And again, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe so you can find out whenever we have another one of these videos up. We will be doing them about all the different characters that we have lined up for this comic book, so please check out all of them. If you missed the first ones, go back and watch those as well. You can find them in the links or attached to this video. And please support the comic book. The comic is available at crowdfunder.com/paragonscomic. That is crowdfunder, no E in crowdfunder.com/paragonscomic. There's going to be a link to that down in the description as well. And if you want to find out about more information about stuff that's coming out without necessarily signing up right away, you can sign up for updates at paragonscomic.substack.com. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please share and tell your friends about this. We need your help to make this comic a reality. So please help us make it happen. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.